Welcome to the Behind the Curtain podcast, your real-world guide to real estate investment and property management.
All right, welcome back. This is Brett Bernard, and I brought back my good friend Tom Durhan, who we had on a previous episode. He's an investor. And after the last show, a topic came up about how Tom got started. And as he explained that, we realized that might be a good episode for some new investors that are out there listening to understand how to get started in real estate when you have limited cash in the bank.
Yeah, thanks for having me back, Brett. Really appreciate it. It's a good topic, and I get asked that a lot because I've been able to build my portfolio up now to 40 houses. But when I started, I didn't know anything about rentals. Mm-hmm. I was marrying my wife 20 years ago. And my in-laws told me, hey, Tom, keep the house you're in as a rental. And I didn't want to. I was like, I don't want to deal with tenants. I don't want to chase rent. I don't want to have repairs. But they convinced me because they had kept all their houses. They had 4 or 5 that it was a good thing. So I tried it and it worked real well. And then when we moved in together, after a while, we started having kids. We moved again and kept her house. So then we had 2 rentals. One of the keys is when you have a rental house, you cannot, and you only have 1, 2, 3, 4, you don't want to live off that.
Right. You
want to reinvest it in the houses, pay down your equity, so you have some assets. And 2, you need good credit. So once that happened, I actually got involved with another investor who introduced me to hard money loans and refinancing.
Hey, explain for the people listening a hard money loan. What is a hard money loan? How do you go about getting one? What are the ups and downs of it? Are there any ups and downs?
Well, there are ups and downs. Well, a hard money loan is where you go to a company or an investor that gives them, like I use REI Capital, Hewlett Gregory, Eric Linderman a lot. And what they'll do is they'll loan you money and they'll give you, as long as you qualify, they'll give you up to the value of the house, including the rehab if you want. But you pay points up front. You usually pay 3 or 4 points up front. So if you're borrowing $60,000, you're paying them $1,800 to $2,400 up front, and then you'll pay anywhere from 0.75 to 1% per month on that balance every month. Interest only, you pay them, and typically they're 6 months to a year. So what you have to do is you borrow that money from them, and then you have to refinance it because once that balloon's due, in 6 months or a year, you owe that full balance.
Okay.
So you've got to refinance to a bank, which, like for me, I use Bank of Bartlett. They're great. Mark Edwards, I'll contact him. He'll refinance it for me.
Okay. So would you recommend that as a path for a new investor? The guy's 28 years old, just his hair's on fire. He just left the real estate class in California. He's ready to be the next Donald Trump.
Yeah. Well, the first few you can get FHA loans on, which is much easier. You can actually contact a realtor like Brett, find a house, and get an FHA loan on. You can own up to 4 properties pretty easily through FHA. Then once you get to that point, if you find a good enough deal, a hard money loan's not a bad idea. Like you find a house in Fraser that's worth, $60,000, $70,000 that cash flows for $800,000-$900,000. You can buy it for $30,000, $40,000. The hard money loan's cheap. It makes sense.
Okay. But on the ones you're buying, $70,000 rents for $850 a month, you suggest going out and just doing an FHA on your first one or some kind of a conventional financing?
If you can, yeah, absolutely. So what you can do is get pre-qualified, and then you walk in. He tells you, hey, Brad, I've pre-qualified for $80,000. You make your offer and you buy it.
Okay, and just do it on straight mortgage instead of hard money.
It's a little harder because hard money you can close fast, like 2 weeks. That's a big benefit.
But you got to have some margins in the property in order for it to make sense.
Yes.
Because you are, like you said, you're paying 1% a month.
Yes.
So let's do $100,000. You're paying $1,000 a month.
Only
interest only.
Yes.
While you're doing the rehab and getting your rent ready. Mm-hmm. And you're paying $1,000 a month until you're able to refinance. And obviously, sometimes the refinances take 30 to 60 days to get completed because you got appraisals and inspections and all that. So if I'm a new investor, I decide to go to REI and get a hard money loan. What do I need to bring in with me? Proof of income. They're gonna run my credit.
Right. You're gonna
write them a check for $1,800 or whatever.
They know me. They never ran my credit, but a new guy. They would run your credit.
Right.
They would prove you had income, but keep in mind if you default, they take the house.
Sure.
So they put a deed against, you sign a lien and a waiver, and once you pay them off, you get that back.
Gotcha.
But if you don't pay them back, it's their house. So they're going to make sure the house will value for, that they would want it.
I got you. If I bought a $100,000 house, my carrying cost, say I carry it to full term, 12 months.
You have $3,000 up front.
3 points.
Plus $12,000.
Plus $12,000. So my carrying cost for the year is $15,000.
Right.
So you really have to run your numbers and your math and make sure you're not going to exceed your value, because then you won't be able to refinance it and actually settle your REI debt.
Right. And it's more of an advanced thing. You have to have all your ducks in a row, because you have to know your rehab costs and be able to get it done quickly, so that you can get to that refinance point quick and know basically how much you're going to be in, so that you can have everything worked out. So this is something more advanced that I wouldn't recommend just right away, unless you really know the market or have a really good construction contact or super realtor like Brett.
Tom's a construction guy. He obviously knows what he's doing. So.
Yeah, that helps. So owning your own construction company as an investor really helps. But as far as how I grew slowly and didn't do a whole lot of hard money loans. I did a few, but you keep paying down your debt. You don't live off of it. And when you get to 10 houses, you got a lot more flexibility. You can go to a bank, get a line of credit if you've just been paying all of them down.
Right.
And not pocketing money. And then you can get a line of credit and do more. And then you can go to Brett and be like, hey, I've got $300,000. What can we do with it?
Sure.
Help. If you find any properties, let me know. And Brett's great at that.
Well, let me ask you this. So we talked about the hard money. Is that how you're doing most of your stuff now, or
no,
have you gotten to the point where
I have lines of credit?
Yeah, that you've opened up against the properties you own.
Correct, because you have a lot of equity. Because this we talked about this last episode. It's a buy and hold. Mm-hmm. So if you've got 10 properties you've had for 7 years, you've got a lot of equity in there. You can borrow against it, and then you pay down that loan. It's basically a long-term strategy that in 10 years, I am going to start living off these properties.
Sure.
And I'm not going to work anymore.
Well, I always look at them as a long-term retirement plan.
Exactly.
I do get a lot of young investors that call me, and they want cash flow. They want income. I don't ever think you can get wealthy on the income of rental properties.
You will not.
Single families, you just can't. But I think eventually, if you do what you're doing, end up with 40 properties that are worth $4 million eventually, you can now liquidate the asset and retire, or produce,
$46,000 a month.
Yeah, an income. So you got retirement income. I try to encourage a lot of my younger investors to get away from the income stream, and you should buy it on income. But I like your idea, and I think that's a smart move, is to take the money you make, just leave it sitting in the bank, so that when the HVAC goes out, you're not coming out of pocket. When the roof needs to be replaced, you're not coming out of pocket.
Well, it's funny. The guy that introduced me to hard money loan and buying and refinancing, it's really sad. He lost his houses. He lost them all because he was living on that money. Because when the management company deposits that big amount into your account, you can do with it whatever you want.
Right.
You don't have to pay your bills. So he was using money for other things, and he ended up, the bank came and took them all. It was really sad.
Because he didn't have the income anymore.
He didn't have the income. Yeah. He over-leveraged himself. So that's important. You can't over-leverage.
I think a lot of local investors learned a hard lesson in 08, 09, and 10. I was at the law firm at that time, and we were bailing out investors on a daily basis who were just 40, 50 properties in, upside down on everything, struggling. We did a lot of walkaways where they got to walk away clean. And we settled out the debt and took care of the property. Well, so I'm going to take and reiterate Tom's advice here. Don't live off the property, because if you live off the property and the market changes, guess what? You're screwed.
Yes, you'll lose it.
Your idea of reinvesting the money, building an asset, and building equity for the future, to me, that has always been the main reason people invest in real estate.
It should be.
Equity, value. Now, if you get into multiplexes and apartment buildings, sure, there's some considerable income to be made there, but there's also some considerable expenses you have to pay.
Yes, you have
taxes and insurance and maintenance and so forth. So come at your investments with a different way of looking at it. Come to your investments as a 10-year hold value. And I'll give you an example. Tom, like I said, you made 300% on that package we sold that I sold for you. And I moved that from you to one of my other investors who was looking for a package. So it was and I kept the commission at 3%, which put more money back in your pocket.
Yes, that was very kind.
So you're a perfect example of if you play the long game and you play it right and reinvest the money in the properties, keep the properties going, that eventually that return will be there.
It will. There's no get rich quick in this game.
No, not at all.
It is a long-term process.
Yeah.
And it's taken me 20 years
right.
to get where I am.
But you're in a good solid position now because you're going to end up with 40 or 50 houses. And that's a nice retirement.
That's a very nice retirement.
Especially once they're all paid for.
Yes, that's the goal.
When do you project to have them all paid for?
Probably about 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
Thank you for listening to Behind the Curtain podcast, your real-world guide to real estate investment and property management. Be sure to subscribe at BehindTheCurtainPodcast.com. And if you'd like to learn more about Enterprise Property Management's real estate services, please visit us on the web at epmrealestate.com. This has been a Sound Ideas Group production for Enterprise Property Management, Inc.